For today's review, we are looking at the Batman Final Suit MegaFig. And before I talk about the figure, let's take a quick look at the data profile card. And as you can see, there is this beautiful comic book artwork of the final Batsuit. And I'm going to be honest, I have never seen this design of the Batsuit before until this figure was announced at Toy Fair this year. So yeah, this is the first time I've learned of this Batsuit's existence. And it looks crazy. Look at how ginormous it is. Almost the size of a Megazord, which is pretty insane. And the source material is from Justice League, the 6th Dimension. On the backside, you do have a read-up. It reads, the Justice League has the map to the 6th Dimension in hand, and with it, they have the key to saving the multiverse from utter destruction. Meanwhile, Superman is trapped on a world with no light and hundreds of dead Supermen. The multiverse is teetering on the brink, and Lex Luthor's Legion of Doom is poised for victory. The final form of Perpetua takes shape, and the DCU will never be the same again. So this is sounding much like Death Metal and Crisis, you know, those sort of big event stories where the multiverse is pretty much crashing down on everybody. I'm assuming this is one of those kind of stories. I've never read this before, but it sounds interesting. However, it does not explain what this Batsuit can do in terms of its abilities. So if you have read this story, feel free to let me know what this Batsuit is capable of doing in the comments below if you feel like doing so. And with that said, let's move on to the aesthetics, because there is no accessories with this figure. Right? MegaFigs, if they come with accessories, they'll come with one. If they don't come with any, then 0. And I don't count the wings because the wings are part of the suit here, so they're not really accessories. And speaking of the wings, let's start with them first. So as you can see, these are the same pair of wings that we have seen before with the Hellbat armor. So it's been a long time since they've used these wings again. And I think this is the first actual, figure that's different that they have reused the wings for, because prior to this, every time I've seen these wings, it's always been associated with different repaints of the Hellbat armor. And as you can see, all they did with the wings this time is they just painted the top parts in this white color, and they just go on the back of the suit. As I rotate this figure around, they just go into the back sockets right there. And you can also remove them, which is really easy, and you can just put them back in like this. And if you don't want the wings out, you can fold them in this way, and it can form a little sort of, I don't know, a cape of some kind, if you want to call it that. So there is that whole thing with the wings, and I'm going to take these off because there are a lot of sculpt details of this figure that I do want to talk about front and back. So let's pop those wings off. I'll try my best here to show the details because I don't have the best setup for talking about MegaFigs because they're so tall and this table is way too small. All right, let's start with the up-close details that we can see. And one thing that I feel like is the problem with this figure, which is probably the biggest flaw with it, is that it just feels unfinished. So a lot of these sculpt details, I like that they're there, right? But the fact that they're not painted or filled in with some sort of black lining to make them stand out, it really does make this figure look really plain. So from a distance, if you were to look at this figure, you probably would just assume that he's just wearing a white armor with gold colors and some black in some areas, but you would never think that there's any sort of details on the armor parts. Not until you look closely at it, then you see all these details that are actually sculpted and present. However, the best way to fix this, which is a really easy thing to do if you know how to do this, is panel lining. And if you've never panel lined before, basically you would take a Gundam marker. You can buy those on Amazon. They have these little small tip for where the ink comes out, and you just trace along the inside of the lines here. And then once it dries up, it will look even better. Then these lines will stand out more instead of looking this plain. So I'm going to do this sort of fix just to make it look better, because right now at the moment, I don't like the fact that these are, left like this. However, at least the sculpted details are there. I will give them that, because it's better than not sculpting the details. They could have literally left this with no grid line patterns and it will look even worse. So that's something I just want to point out right away, because all these sculpted parts are present throughout the entirety of this suit in terms of the white part of the armor. Now for the gold part of it, like this color down here, I guess you can also panel line it too if you have the right sort of tools for that. Okay, let's start with this head sculpt. The head sculpt is pretty cool looking, and in this case it reminds me a lot of Shockwave for some reason, because Shockwave has like a singular eyeball for his face, and he doesn't ever show his mouth or anything, right? So this is very much similar to that kind of look. And I also like the fact that they painted this in this sort of color to kind of simulate that it is a glowing light that's emulating from the head sculpt here. So, you know, it's not the best, but at least they tried their best with the paint here to make it look like it's glowing. So I do like that. But again, a lot of the details up here with the head sculpt, as you can see, like the lines that are present, they could be filled in with, you know, black ink to make these areas stand out, because when you look at it from a distance, again, it just looks really plain. So a lot of those could be fixed. And let's move on to the arms. I'm going to try to show the arms better. I like the sculpting of the shoulder part here with this like pointy, spiky thing that's sticking out of it. It does give the shoulder armor some sort of cool design. And the entirety of the arm being this gold color mixed with a little bit of the white parts does look cool as well. But again, you can see how plain this looks, right? I'm pretty sure somebody out there who's a customizer is probably going to make this thing look 10 times better than what it looks like right now. I just don't know like what else you can add to fix this. Maybe change the color of this sort of paint here, maybe. Because one thing that you can see in the photo, if I can bring that back in. Okay, the figure is going to fall. The gold parts, or the bronze part, whatever you want to call this, they have this sort of detail. Do you see that? I hope my camera's focusing. Yeah, all that stuff. Now, I'm pretty sure you could probably paint it like that. It will require a lot of work, of course, but it's there. And I think that's what makes those areas stand out. Now, they did not do exactly that. However, if you look closely, there is a lot of texturing in this paint. So they did try to do something like that, but not exactly at the best. But I still respect that they added texture here instead of leaving it flat. So, but if you are a customizer, there's probably a way that you can probably make these areas stand out even more. That's why I said it feels kind of unfinished here. It feels like there's a lot they could have added to certain parts here in the paint details. And then he does have the giant fist hand, which is good. At least he has two fist hands. This is a freaking robot suit that Batman is wearing. If he didn't come with fist hands, that would be quite disappointing. So there's that. And then when you look at the waist area here, he does have this sort of like skirt piece, whatever you want to call this. Very typical design for robots or mech suits. So I do like that. And I like the fact that he took inspiration from a lot of designs of mech suits, because you can tell this is heavily inspired from something. I don't know what it is, but it looks familiar to me for some reason. And then let's take a look at the legs. Down here, I do like what they did with the lower parts of the legs. I like the whole like mixing of the white and the gold here. This is actually really well sculpted and the details are actually pretty nice. But again, all these lines, right? If you panel line all these areas, man, this would just pop even more. But this is just cool. I like the whole combination here with the colors. So the bottom part of the legs look really cool. And then the sculpting for the knee area, we can take a look at it from the backside. This is very much also inspired from mechs, because there are certain mechs that have these sort of design element for the legs to make it look like there's like a lot of moving parts that are covered up by this sort of design here. I'm blanking, okay? I think you know what I'm trying to talk about if you are aware of what I'm trying to point at, but I just don't remember like where I seen this design from, okay? So there is that. And then the back part here as well, you can see more of those details again. And speaking of the back part, this is the back side of the torso. And look at all those details, all those sculpted details that are present, right? It could use a lot of work. And as you can see, there are these two little sockets for the wings. So there is that. And that's pretty much the backside, which does look really cool. I like this, whatever this is supposed to be. It is like a spinal design, I think. That's what they're going for. And it's supposed to match up with the wings, I think, in the overall design here. So really cool. And that's pretty much the aesthetics for the back part of the torso. Down here by the feet, he does have these regular looking feet, which is cool. And that's pretty much it for the aesthetics of this figure. Yeah, there are a lot of sculpted details, but when it comes to paint, as you can see, it is lacking a lot of that. And is there anything else that I missed? Oh, there's one thing I should probably talk about. I do like this bat logo. Let's talk about this as well. I can't forget that. Look at that bat logo. That is really nicely sculpted. And I'm glad that it's actually a sculpted part. And it's not just printed on to the torso. Because they've been doing a lot of that lately with a lot of the recent figures that we have been getting. And I really miss when they used to sculpt the emblems onto the figure, because that's what I like about this, is when it's a sculpted part. Now, I know in the actual costumes that they wear in the comics, it's not sculpted. It is just a piece of fabric, right? It's like, you know, knitted together to have that in there. But in terms of an action figure, I still think that having that three-dimensional sculpt just makes it look even cooler. So that's just my preference. All right, that is pretty much it for the aesthetics, because there are not a whole lot of details on here that I can really point out. Actually, wait, no. Man, I'm backtracking today, but that's okay, because I always fumble with my reviews. There is a little bit of details going on in here, but it's hidden by all the black color paint. So as you can see, I don't know if my camera is focusing on that. His neck has some sculpted details. So that's pretty cool. I do like that. And also down here, there are some more details going on with the under part of his stomach area that's being covered up by this top frame here. And yeah, that is pretty much all the details that I can really point at. Okay. Well, that is my typical sort of review style, as you know, where I sometimes fumble like this. But okay. Let's talk about the articulation, because compared to some of the other MegaFigs that we have gotten in the past, this one poses much more like your average DC Multiverse figure, but just like bigger, I guess. So let's start with the head sculpt. You can't get the head sculpt to look up. You can't. This is not possible. It doesn't even want to move, actually. Looking down, you can get him to look down. Turning his head left and right, that's no problem. Tilting is no issue at all. But looking up, not even happening. And I think it's because of this back part here. Oh, yeah, it's this back part. So it runs into this sort of, as you can see right there, it runs into that. So that's why I can't look up. So there's the head sculpt articulation. As for his arms, it can't go out this much. And luckily, because this is a soft piece here, but you still want to be careful, and it's not connected to the shoulders on the top part here, you can swing the arms all the way back. So that's pretty cool. And compared to some MegaFigs, he has a bicep swivel up there. As you can see, it does move. He has a single jointed articulation for the arms. There is no rotation down here because the bicep does exist. Usually, if there's no rotation up here, there will be a rotation down there. For his hands, there is swivel and there is articulation. Let me see where that joint is. Oh, there it is. And it does not want to move because it's tight. So yeah, this is a new copy. I haven't heated up all the joints yet. Let's see if it works on this side. Oh, it does work. There you go. Kinda. So yeah, it moves. So there is that. And then the torso articulation. This is what I'm interested in because I haven't articulated this figure entirely. Does it rotate really good? Ooh, it does rotate really good. It has a really good range of motion here. I do like that. Wow, look at that. That's crazy. Leaning forward, not too bad, actually. It can lean forward okay. Leaning back, pretty decent as well. So there you go. This is another example of a figure that has articulation in the torso that actually moves better than some DC Multiverse figures. Quite surprising. Moving on into the leg articulation, he can kick up this much, which is pretty good. But as you can see, his top part of his leg does run into the bottom part of the waist part. So there is going to be some hindrance there. In terms of spreading his legs out, this is as much as you're going to spread out the legs. So not the greatest because of the fact that this top part will collide with the waist area. As for the legs, they do have the double jointed articulation, which is pretty good. He also has articulation down here, swivel with the feet, of course, and toe articulation. And in terms of the thigh swivels, he does have thigh swivels as well. So that's pretty good in terms of the leg articulation. And that's pretty much going to be it for the articulation of this figure. It does have some good parts and it does have some bad parts, but overall, you can get him into some action poses if you pose him correctly. And now it's time we do some comparisons with some other figures. And let me just set this guy back up with his wings. And as you can see, the assembly with the wings is pretty simple. All you do is just plug these into the back. And there you go. Hopefully he can stand because, yo, please, balance. He's having trouble standing. Okay, don't just, we're good. All right, there you go. He's balancing. Okay, for the first figure we're going to bring in, here he is next to the Marvel Legends Savage Land Xavier. And this is not entirely a good scale here, because if you want to make this image here accurate, as you can see, because the suit is ginormous, maybe using a 3-inch scale or 4-inch scale figure might be the best scenario, I believe, here, because 6 inches is definitely not going to work here, right? This suit is supposed to be massive. Here he is next to Connor Hawk, Green Arrow. Again, not the right scale, so there's that. And of course, for the last comparison, here he is next to another mech suit of some kind. Let's call it that. And both of these suits are supposed to be big, okay? Like, this is the similarities that these two figures have when it comes to a certain issue, is that they are not going to be in the accurate size, because of the fact that if they were accurate in their sizes, they would be very expensive figures to buy, right? I mean, these would not cost $40. They would cost way more than that. So in this case, I'm okay with them being inaccurate with the scale, because if it's to get these figures in my collection and they have to downsize them into this sort of like lower scale, that's fine, because, you know, sometimes you just can't recreate these with your 7-inch figures. But if you do have the tiny ones, as I said, those will work better. So, all right, and that's pretty much going to be the comparisons for today's review. If you found today's review on the Batman Final Suit or Final Batsuit, man, I'm getting these names mixed up, informative, do give this video a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel for more action figure content and whatever else I do on here, it would be much appreciated. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.